All right, today we're going to show you something that's a little different than a lot of the video that we shoot. Normally you see us, we're either on the inside or the outside of a house, and we're putting in a window or changing out some siding or doing some waterproofing, or inside building a shower or installing cabinetry, installing trim, changing out a door. Well, this is a little different than that today. Today we are actually underneath a deck, and specifically this is a deck that runs around the circumference of a pool. And what we've got here, just to give you a little background, what has happened is we've got this beam here. This is a 16-inch microlam beam, and what's happened is this beam supports the pool cover system. And the pool cover system is basically a round galvanized tube that's about 20 feet long, and it's a spindle on a series of gears. And what it does is it automatically closes. The cover runs along a track on either side of the pool, and it closes as a cover over the pool. It's a very heavy system. It's not that old. This one's probably 5 or 6 years old, and it had been replaced. But what's happened is it has these brackets that stick out to keep the end of the pool open, so that pool cover can slide through there as it opens and closes. That whole end that has a coping on top of it as the pool perimeter, that all has to be suspended. So what they've got here is they've got this stainless steel bracket. It has an arm that sticks out, and it actually supports the coping. The coping's fairly heavy. There's probably, 500–600 pounds of coping on just the end of the pool itself. It may be even more. We actually didn't weigh it out, but it's kind of like jelly beans in the jar, right? So those stainless steel brackets are up there. So when we first got here, the problem was this beam had actually shifted, and it actually twisted from the weight of holding the pool cover, especially in the open position. When the pool cover is open, all of that weight of the pool cover itself is reeled on that galvanized tube, and all that weight sits directly on there, pulling down, as well as the coping that sits on there. And all those brackets, which are bolted over top of this beam, are actually supporting all of that weight. So it's a good, probably a 1,500 to 2,000 pounds that are wanting to twist this beam. Now, this beam originally, when it was installed, had no support on the top except for having the decking screwed into it. Just wasn't enough to hold it into place. And as you can see, originally, I probably have to come around to this side to see it. It had only this little 6x6 bracket that held the beam in place. There's one here and there's one here. And all it did was hold the bottom of the beam in place, so the beam wouldn't slide one way or the other. But it didn't do anything for the top of the beam where the real support was needed. So originally, what somebody did is they came in here, and here's the pool bracket itself that holds up the coping, and it also holds the bracketing for the pool cover. They came in there and they put some metal shims in there. It helped a little bit, but really it was more of a band-aid than anything. Still, the beam of the pool, the actual deck beam itself, was still slanted, and nothing had made that right and brought it back up so it was in its full vertical position. So what we did is, first of all, we noticed that the original brackets here were actually rusted out. In this condition, we're not more than 300 yards from the beach on the ocean. We're up against the pool. You can see all this efflorescence that comes out, that weeps out the salts and the calcium that comes out from the concrete of the pool. We've got chlorinated water, treated water in the pool, gets splashed over the edges. So these original brackets that were here were absolutely deteriorated. We got 3 lower beams here. They support this upper beam, and this was a whole lot of problem that was going to come to be a big problem later on, probably in not too distant future. So what we did is we removed the existing brackets, and we put on these 1/2-inch stainless steel brackets. Now these are kind of an expensive fix, but it'll be permanent. These will never have to be touched again. The original bolts were in great shape. They were originally galvanized bolts, and they hadn't taken any kind of abuse or anything like that. where the actual brackets that they used were just painted steel brackets. And those painted steel brackets, once that paint finish is compromised, it's just a matter of time. It's a ticking time bomb for that. So with these new brackets on each side, and then we also added a seat bracket underneath. And basically all we wanted to do is we wanted to add a little bit of strength, not just from the side, but from a vertical point of view. If we put this bracket under here, then this beam is going to be less likely to float around at all. You can see we did that for all three beams along there. And the next thing we did, and I can show you best here, is we added to each one of these lower beams, we added this 6x6 stainless steel bracket. It's about 27 inches long. And what we did is we bolted it through this lower beam, and then we bolted it to the upper beam in order to pull the upper beam back into place. Now this has a rigid support. It's got the strength of an angle, and it's 1/2 inch thick. It's not going to get much better than this. This thing will last forever. Again, it's stainless steel. It's just a whole lot better than your garden variety of metal angle. Now what it's done is it's brought that beam up into place, and it's just assisting these 6x6 brackets, these original brackets that were put on when the house was built, when this deck system was built. So now these are actually married together a whole lot better, and instead of just this little bracket just holding the bottom of the beam and the top can float around anywhere it wants, now this actually has a strong support, and this beam can't move anywhere any further. You can see if you step back over here, I'll show you what happens from the compression when they originally put this in. You can see this is the line that I drew when they set the bracket in there perfectly level. You can see how much weight is on here, because you can see they're about 1/8 of an inch off their line, and this one we probably got about a 1/4 of an inch that this actually shifted when we put it in. So what we did is we kind of compensated for that by actually setting the bracket in a little tilted back, and then we knew it would compress the wood fibers, things like that, and as it set in, it was going to go ahead and stand itself up. So now we've got that in there. We also did some shimming of the brackets and everything, and now we've got a good solid connection. This connection was good over here. It really was these three connections at this beam, and now we've created a system where this beam not only has the support it needs at the bottom, but it also has the support at the top. This problem should be, this is the end of it here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up top, and we're going to just have a look at, from a cosmetic standpoint, what we did and what was cured by doing it. To some people it would look like, well, it's not that big a deal, but definitely when you see the house, you understand why it was important that we do this. All right, well, here we are, topside. We are here on the deck that runs around the pool here, and I want to just give you an idea of what it was we actually were repairing. We're going to make this real quick because we think we're going to get dumped on with rain here pretty quick. What we actually did here was this coping is the coping that actually floats, about 20 feet of it all the way along the pool, and this corner is solid. So what had happened is this had sunk as the brackets had dipped, and they lost their strength because they were attached to the beam that actually rolled. So we brought everything back up in the air, bolted everything in place. Now these two are even again. We've just grouted this section. Unfortunately, what's going to happen is, because this stuff floats, it's always going to be flexible. There's always going to be some kind of flexion to it, and it's not, can't really change that. But what we can do is we can kind of keep an eye on it. You notice this corner hasn't broken, that corner hasn't broken, but the other two have, and they've been left in place the way they are. So what we've got is we've basically got 5 pieces of coping along here that float. And my guess is at some point this will show some tiny cracks, and as a few years go by you'll get that grinding kind of between the 2 pieces of coping. We'll probably break the grout back down. It'll have to be regrouted again. If it rains hard here today, we may have to regrout it again tomorrow. We'll see about that. But now you can see everything's level, everything's back up into place, and now at least the structure isn't going to go anywhere. That's going to stay in place. It's just going to be a matter of, you get any kind of heavy weight on this, people walking on it or anything like that, you're going to get a little bit of flexibility to it, and that's kind of unfortunate. But it is the nature of the beast. That's the way these pool covers work. And as you pull this back, you can see you have to have this channel completely open to receive that pool cover in, unless you want to do a surface pool cover, and that absolutely for this client is not an option. As you can tell, they want everything to be out of the way, and this is, fortunately, this is a pretty small price to pay to be able to have that luxury of having that pool cover just slide in underneath. That takes care of our pool cover job, and we'll talk to you soon.